The woman in white smashes through the glass door. Her hair is thin, and her face lacks any trace of color. The woman bares her fangs, ready to devour the woman on the ground. Fortunately, the woman's strength is enough to flip it over. It scratches its own face without even noticing. This is the city of zombies. Raccoon City was once the headquarters of a pharmaceutical company, Umbrella Corporation, but now it has become a desolate wasteland. The time goes back several tens of minutes. The woman's name is Carla. She boards an oil tanker truck. April is going to Raccoon City to meet her brother. When the male driver harasses Carla, he accidentally hits a passing woman and sends her flying. Carla quickly gets off the truck to check on her. However, she discovers that the girl is no longer breathing. The oil tanker truck driver wants to escape responsibility. Carla feels that the driver lacks conscience and insists on taking the girl to the hospital immediately. The two of them start arguing. They didn't notice that the girl got up and left. The dog in the car starts barking loudly upon seeing this. It opens the car door and runs over. It even licks the blood of the girl on the ground. Afterwards, the oil tanker truck drives into the desolate Raccoon City. This city has almost turned into a ghost town. Soon after, Carla arrived at her home in Raccoon City. She knocked on the door for a long time, but her brother Greg didn't come to open it. Seeing no response, Carla used a small knife to pry open the door. Then Greg came downstairs as if he hadn't woken up. Carla took out a videotape and showed it to her brother. On the TV, a mysterious scientist appeared, claiming that someone had released the biochemical T virus into the city's water supply and urging the citizens of Raccoon City to evacuate. Greg, being a police officer, didn't believe the scientist's claims, and he turned around and left the room. On the other side, the police officers of Raccoon City were celebrating at a bar, and David, a rookie cop, had just joined. Newcomers often face exclusion, and even before David said anything, two police officers started revealing his dark past. The bar owner took a keen interest in David, and as they chatted, tears of blood trickled from the corner of her eye. She casually wiped them away, indicating that it was just due to irritation. Suddenly, a crow crashed into the glass door, falling to the ground. Strangely, most of its bones were broken, yet it continued to flap its wings on the ground. It was evident that it was infected with the T virus. On the other side, a truck driver was petting a dog when suddenly the dog growled. It bit the driver's hand, and his hand immediately started bleeding profusely. The driver hurriedly looked for something to stop the bleeding, unaware that his life was already counting down. John, the biochemical expert in Raccoon City, received an evacuation notice, and he was instantly filled with panic. He quickly called his wife and daughter to get in the car, while the city's air raid sirens began to blare. The company's loudspeakers kept warning the citizens to stay at home and wait for rescue. Carla, who was alone at home, heard the alarm. As she was about to leave and escape, her female neighbor blocked the doorway. Tears of blood streamed down her neighbor's face, and she had blood on her hands. She wrote eerie characters on the glass. Carla's hair stood on end, and then there was a sound coming from under the table. Carla discovered that the neighbor's child was hiding under the table, and her actions agitated the neighbor. The neighbor, acting like a madwoman, smashed the glass and rushed in, tackling Carla. Carla quickly struck her with an elbow, knocking her over, and took the opportunity to flip over and escape the room. She rode her brother's motorcycle and fled. In the dim rainy night, a car came crashing towards her. She quickly stopped the vehicle. Both sides stared at each other through the glass. Carla's memories from many years ago were triggered. It turned out that Carla and her sibling lost both of their parents, and they were dumped into an orphanage. John was actually a teacher at the orphanage, and his company secretly used children for experiments. Carla became friends with a monstrous girl, and one night, Carla was targeted by John. He wanted to take her to participate in an experiment. Later, Carla found an opportunity to escape from the orphanage and return to reality. Anxious John saw people blocking the road, and he drove around them. At that moment, the infected bar owner underwent a transformation and staggered into the rainy night. Carla was about to approach and investigate, but she noticed a familiar oil tanker. The driver and the dog were also infected at that moment. Meanwhile, the police chief summoned all personnel for a meeting and instructed the officers to investigate the mansion of the CEO, Lester. Only the police chief and the receptionist David remained in the police station, and surprisingly, David fell asleep with headphones on. At that moment, the out-of-control oil tanker headed towards the entrance of the police station, and after it flipped over, it exploded with a loud bang. Sleeping David, however, didn't notice it until the driver of the flaming oil tanker walked into the police station, which startled him awake. He heard a gunshot behind him, and the police chief himself took down the zombie. The police chief ordered David to close the police station's doors, and he helped extinguish the fire on the driver who was on the ground. Then, the police chief appointed David as the new police station chief. After saying this, he started to gather his belongings into his car and quickly drove away. David stood in the underground parking lot, feeling confused. The police chief arrived at the outskirts of the city and discovered that the Umbrella Corporation was intercepting there. The emotionally charged crowd argued for a couple of sentences, and the soldiers of the corporation opened fire on them. In an instant, all the people fell to the ground. The group of soldiers began an indiscriminate attack, and the police chief turned around and headed back to the underground parking lot of the police station. As soon as he got out of the car, he was targeted by a virus-infected dog. The police chief quickly drew his gun and fired, but the infected dog was too agile. The police chief couldn't deal with it, so he had no choice but to lie on the ground and pray. Just as the infected dog was about to bite the police chief, Carla appeared with a fire extinguisher. She smashed it against the infected dog, saving the police chief. Unfortunately, the police station was already surrounded by zombies. If they wanted to escape, they could only rely on the helicopter piloted by Greg. On the other side, the elite team stormed into Lester's mansion. They discovered that there were no guards present, so the four of them had to split up and search. Shortly after, they encountered zombies. The researcher saw a zombie approaching him, and Greg shot it in the head. The teammate upstairs wasn't so lucky. He encountered several zombies while searching. Since the police officer was unaware of their weaknesses, he was quickly overwhelmed by the zombies. The helicopter pilot outside had no idea what was happening. He was looking down at his phone. Suddenly, he was attacked by a zombie, breaking through the glass and dying on the spot. The helicopter also lost control and crashed into the living room of the mansion. The police officer Martin and his companion Nina discovered a secret passage. The next moment, they were thrown out by the impact of the explosion, and the luxurious living room was completely destroyed. The two of them crawled out from the wreckage. Martin looked at the deep secret passage in astonishment and said, "So, all of this is real." It turns out that Martin, in addition to being a police officer, is a spy for a secret organization. He received a message from his superiors a few days ago about the Umbrella Corporation's biohazard experiment leakage. They plan to use a nuclear bomb to completely destroy Raccoon City in order to eliminate the evidence. Martin left his teammates behind and entered the secret passage, while Carla and David opened the ammunition storage in the police station. They wanted to find suitable firearms. David heard someone calling for help from the dungeon, so he quickly went down to check. He discovered that the scientist imprisoned in the dungeon was the one who had raised concerns about the biohazard leakage. When the scientist saw David approaching, he grabbed David's collar and took away his pistol. David was forced to open the cell door. The scientist was just about to leave. His cellmate bit him in one bite, then he crazily lunged at David. Weaponless, David stood still. Carla arrived in time and shot the zombies, driving them away. The number of zombies outside kept increasing. They finally broke through the iron gate of the police station. Faced with countless enemies, the three of them fought and retreated at the same time. They ran to the orphanage school of the company. The chief told them that there was a secret passage here that led to Lester's mansion. They could only escape by getting on the helicopter. Before he could finish his words, he was captured by a xenomorph creature. This creature is called a Licker. Carla and David turned around and ran. The Licker had a long attack range, and it tripped David with its extended tongue. Carla quickly drew her gun and started shooting, but she failed to hit its weak spot. Their situation was extremely dangerous. A female monster with restraints appeared. It grabbed the Licker from behind and snapped its neck. The monster in front of them was actually Carla's friend, Lisa, the girl who had been used as a test subject by the company. Carla started to communicate with her old friend. Lisa not only helped them obtain the key, but also personally escorted them to the entrance of the secret passage. The two of them took the elevator and entered the underground passage. On their way to Lester's mansion, they also discovered the research materials from that year. They opened the old projector and learned the truth. Most of the children from that time became experimental sacrifices. On the other side, Greg ran out of bullets while dealing with the zombies. He was about to be overwhelmed by the zombies. Nina finally arrived and told Greg that Martin had escaped. They could only enter the secret passage to save their lives. There were many biochemical laboratories in the secret passage. In one of the laboratories, Professor John was organizing the latest research results, the G-Virus. However, Martin appeared at this moment and decided to snatch a sum of money before leaving. So he approached and took the G-Virus. John grabbed a handgun and shot at Martin. In the narrow laboratory, both of them hit each other. Martin was wearing a bulletproof vest, but John had already fallen into a pool of blood. John's wife retaliated with a gun, but she was also taken down by Martin. John took the opportunity to inject the serum into his own body. Martin was furious. He was about to shoot John's little daughter, but he was shot in the back. It turned out that Nina and Greg had arrived. As Martin was dying, he told Nina that the company was going to bomb Raccoon City early in the morning. He reminded them to board the small train in the secret passage to escape. Nina and the others quickly set off. Just then, John's corpse started moving. The G-virus had taken effect, and he instantly transformed into a giant monster and chased after them. Greg stayed behind to buy time for Nina and the little girl to escape. He was quickly overpowered by John and rendered defenseless. Carla, Greg's sister, wielded a weapon and shot John repeatedly, turning him into a sieve. In this way, the 5 of them successfully boarded the small train to escape Raccoon City. However, before the train could leave the blast radius, the bomb detonated, causing the tunnel to collapse. They had no choice but to get off the train and continue on foot. Just then, John evolved into a giant monster over 4 meters tall. He tore open the roof of the train and grabbed Carla. At that moment, he saw his daughter in the corner, and he instantly regained his sanity and stopped his actions. Carla took the opportunity to stab John in the eye, but she was thrown away. Greg quickly fired his weapon, but he couldn't stop the mutant monster's attack. In the final moment, David pulled out a rocket launcher from his pants and successfully dispatched the mutant monster. The company thought they had eliminated all the witnesses, but they didn't know that Carla and the other 5 had successfully escaped Raccoon City. Martin, as a major villain, was dragged out by King Ada. From that point on, he wore his iconic sunglasses and embarked on a new life as a villain. The film is called New Biohazard Crisis, and it tells the story of people in Raccoon City fighting against zombies. The overall storyline is simple, and the film's plot is adapted from the first 2 games. Many elements of the original plot and character designs have been altered, which has caused dissatisfaction among fans of the original work. The visuals in the film are too dark, but some scenes are still visually appealing. However, there is a sense of disjointedness between the scenes. Interested viewers can watch the original film. Alright, that's it for today's video. See you in the next episode.